This is 6 Minutes, the seriously international daily newscast. It's Monday, March 24th, and I'm Bertrand Hauger.
And I'm Jacob Shropshire. It's evening time on Christmas Island in the Indian Ocean and morning in French Guiana on the Atlantic coast of South America. Here in the World Crunch newsroom in Paris, it's just after midday. These are the latest headlines. Israel strikes Gaza overnight, killing at least 25. Istanbul's mayor is chosen as opposition presidential candidate amid mass protests over his arrest. And our daily quiz question comes from a polling booth in Paris. We're starting today with the top story from Saudi Arabia, where U.S. and Russian officials have begun talks on Monday toward a broad ceasefire in Ukraine. Washington is reportedly pushing for an initial deal to preserve peace in the Black Sea before securing a wider ceasefire. The Black Sea has not been a main location of hostilities, but represents an economic passage for goods like grain from both Ukraine and Russia.
Going into these negotiations, the real X factor isn't Donald Trump or Volodymyr Zelensky, but Vladimir Putin. Writing for German weekly Die Zeit, Michael Truman makes the case that Putin has a lot of incentives to keep the war going. After a quarter century in power, the Russian president has made war the defining narrative of his rule, and the war against Ukraine has become his biggest and maybe his final chapter of that project. Truman writes that what separates Putin from Europe and much of the rest of the world is a fundamentally warped sense of what counts as normal. For most people, peace is the natural state of things, and war is an unbearable exception that should be stopped as soon as possible. For Putin, it's the other way around, which is how it justifies his presidency. In the Middle East, pre-dawn strikes launched by Israel hit a hospital in Gaza and killed at least 25 Palestinians, including a 16-year-old and a Hamas political chief. The strikes came nearly a week after Israel entered the ceasefire with Hamas by resuming hostilities in Gaza. Meanwhile, there are reports of a new push by Egypt to re-establish the ceasefire, which Hamas has, quote, responded positively to.
Tens of thousands of protesters took to the streets across Turkey over the weekend to protest the arrest of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, the leader of the country's opposition. A spokesperson for the CHP party, which he heads, said Monday that İmamoğlu was officially nominated as their presidential candidate, further raising the stakes of an arrest that many in Turkey believe was politically motivated. Greenland's Prime Minister Mette Bjergård sharply criticized the planned visit to the island by U.S. officials. After the announcement that National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and Second Lady Usha Vance would visit the island, Bjergård called it highly aggressive. Former President Donald Trump's proposal to purchase the island has faced widespread backlash from residents. In a recent election, Greenlanders reaffirmed their preference for politicians who support maintaining the island's current status as part of Denmark.
Now let's take a closer look at what the international press is covering. In South Korea, Seoul Daily Ankyoreh dedicates its front page to the wildfires ravaging the country's southeast, showing the image of huge mountains crisscrossed by lines of flames. The fires, which started on Friday afternoon, have killed at least 4 people and forced thousands to evacuate. Also in South Korea, the Constitutional Court has reinstated Prime Minister Han Duck-soo to his post at the head of the government after dismissing his impeachment by the country's parliament. Han was impeached 2 weeks after taking power in December over his refusal to appoint judges likely to convict Prime Minister Yoon Suk-yeol over his attempt to impose martial law.
Canadian newspapers are all leading with the news of Prime Minister Mark Carney's announcement of snap elections slated to take place on April 28th. Having succeeded Justin Trudeau as head of the Liberal Party and Prime Minister just 10 days ago, Carney's decision comes as the Liberals experience an unprecedented swing in the polls, largely attributed to Canada's ongoing showdown with Donald Trump.
The global press is also covering Pope Francis' return to the Vatican on Sunday. This follows a 5-week hospitalization for double pneumonia, and the 88-year-old pontiff appeared frail but determined.
We're closing things out today with our daily quiz question, which comes from a Paris polling booth. Parisians went to the polls Sunday to vote on a referendum that passed by a nearly 2/3 majority. What did Paris residents vote in favor of? Is it A, allowing smoking only outside of bars and cafes? B, requiring people to sing Les Champs-Élysées before renting an apartment? C, creating more bakeries to reduce the price of baguettes? Or D, turning 500 streets into pedestrian-only walkways? The correct answer is D. Parisians voted overwhelmingly in favor of a referendum that would turn 500 streets into pedestrian-only walkways in the French capital. With 66% in favor, residents approved the effort to reduce car usage and improve air quality, getting rid of more than 10,000 parking spaces in the process. Once completed, the city will have more than 700 of these so-called green lung streets, making up more than 1/10 of the streets in the city.
And that's the latest from around the world. If you like this podcast, we'd really appreciate if you could help us out with a follow, share, and a 5-star rating on your preferred podcasting platform. For more of the best of the international press, delivered exclusively in English, visit us at worldcrunch.com. We'll see you here tomorrow. Bis morgen.